Writer's block, creative block, or creativity burnout is a common phenomenon among artists and creators. It's that frustration when you have to stare at the blank canvas, the empty page. You start doubting yourself or being defensive of your work. Sometimes artists are perfectionists and they stress over the lack of quality on their work, and as a result, they are unable to create new projects, or worse, they stop enjoying art. I used to work in a video game studio as a writer and game designer, so I have to come up with concepts for characters and storylines, but also with mechanics and video game ideas daily. When you have to be creative 8 hours a day, 5 days a week or more, it can get exhausting, and you start experiencing a creativity burnout. But thanks to that experience, I learned the 3 most common reasons for writer's block and how to deal with them. The first reason we are going to explore is the lack of discipline. Because sometimes we don't write simply because we are being lazy, and we even procrastinate, lying to ourselves, pretending to be productive, saying something along the lines of, "I will watch this movie for research," or "I won't start my book until I have a degree in creative writing," and we postpone our writing. But don't get me wrong, research and education are important. But sometimes we use these perfectly reasonable arguments as excuses because we are afraid of failing. So how do we deal with the lack of discipline? A friend of mine and a novelist gave me advice that has worked for me really well. I met him at the video game studio I mentioned before. Work with daily goals. 2 pages a day is the goal my friend had in order to stay productive and finish his novels. So after a day of work and personal business, he will go to his house and write those 2 pages every day. But of course, 2 pages a day could be too much, especially if you are just beginning your writing career. You could start with 1 page a day, or if you are a student or have a 9-to-5 job, you can work with weekly goals instead of daily ones, like 5 to 7 pages a week, distributed in your free days depending on your schedule. The important thing here is not the quantity of the pages, but building a habit. When you manage to write a page every day for a year, you will have accomplished more than 300 written pages. That could translate into a book or a couple of light novels or screenplays, or even a significant amount of short films and tales. The more prolific a writer is, the bigger the chances of building an audience and obtaining commercial or professional success. Keep in mind that not all the pages you write are going to be final. Sometimes it is good to spend a day reading, editing, correcting, and erasing instead of just writing. Once you have a habit, writing will become natural and won't be a matter of wanting to or being in the mood. Not to mention that you will improve a lot by finishing your stories, but of course, writer's block is not that simple. Sometimes you have the discipline, but nothing comes out of your mind. That takes us to the second reason for creative burnout: the lack of knowledge. You're in front of your machine trying to start your next story, but you are unable to come up with an idea. Well, sometimes we can write because we don't have anything to say, and that is true for any type of art or creative endeavor. When your mind is empty, it's time to learn something new. Knowledge is the road and fuel for creativity. The inspiration for your next story could be in a physics book, or a history encyclopedia, maybe in an article or documentary. But it's not just about general information in your brain, it's also about experiences. Storytelling is about expressing those experiences to an audience. Going outside, practicing a new sport, trying to eat a dish you haven't tried, watching a movie you don't like, go camping with your friends. If you can capture the truth of your feelings in your mind, you will be able to express those feelings through storytelling. So as long as you learn something new every day and try new things as much as you can, inspiration and creativity will be on your side. But there is still another source for writer's block. Maybe you have discipline and you are a living encyclopedia, but you still don't want to write. That takes us to our next point: the lack of motivation. The reason why we have a lack of motivation, even though we love writing or creating, is due to a lack of a personal bond with the piece we are creating. That could be especially true when working for customers. Sometimes you will be hired to write a story you don't truly like because of the genre or general idea the client is asking for, but every story has something redeemable, so you can find an aspect of the story you're writing that you are passionate about and focus on that aspect. You are the writer. You are in control of the story, even with creative limitation from budgets, clients, or producers. I spent a considerable amount of time working in marketing, so I wrote and edited commercials and social media spots. I wasn't especially passionate about some of the topics in the commercials, but I learned to find or even contribute something personal to the story. For example, I was writing a commercial for the special menu of a Mexican restaurant, and since I come from a Mexican family, I decided to make the commercial about family and the warm touch of the Mexican cuisine and culture. So that was the main theme of the script, and that allowed me to change my perspective from a tedious task to a personal project. Another example I can give you is when I was writing the pilot for a web series. It was an animated show for kids, which is not the type of media I usually consume, but I was away from home working in a distant city, so writing a show for children reminded me of my little brothers. Again, I found a way to make the story mine. Whenever you don't feel motivated to write, step back and take a minute to think about why you write, why you are creating these pieces, and find an aspect of the story that motivates you. It could be a character of the story, the theme, or even a place in the world you are creating. In conclusion, when you have the habit of writing, when you push yourself to new experiences and new information and focus on what drives you as an artist and creator, the writer's block will be way easier to handle. However, if you still have problems dealing with procrastination and feel the burnout, that could be a sign of a deeper problem in your life, like fear of failure, anxiety, or depression. In that case, never be afraid of asking for help. Ideas are important, but more often than not overrated. Writers usually wait for the perfect idea to come, an idea that is fresh, deep, and entertaining. But a regular idea well executed is always better than a perfect idea that is just in your mind accumulating dust just because you are afraid of ruining it. Projects and products are always better than ideas. A lot of new writers have trouble selling or producing their stories because they have problems explaining themselves. They have a few ideas or concepts about what their stories are about. They have a compilation of scenes and characters, but not a full comprehension of what the story is about at its core. Ideas are not stories. And in order to fully understand our stories, we need to lay the foundation of the story. But first, we need to come up with a concept. For that, I like to do an exercise named Mix and Match to get ideas faster. First, we need to do a quick sketch of what are some of the essential elements in a story. You will need a character to tell the story. That character will need a goal or a mission to move forward, and there should be a source of conflict to make things interesting. Now, mix and match. This exercise consists in creating 3 lists of random words. One for characters, the second one for goals and missions, and the last one for potential conflicts or villains. These words should be completely random, and after that you mix them and pick one from each list to later match them and get a concept, like a plumber, a princess, and a turtle, to get a plumber that wants to save a princess from a turtle. This might sound like a dumb idea, but the execution can lead to one of the best-selling video games or an incredibly profitable franchise. What I'm trying to say is that ideas and concepts are important, but not as important as their execution. You might get some crazy ideas from the mix and match. You can polish them and start executing them creatively, and before you know it, your ideas are flowing.